The most theatrical automotive. Let us show you inside.
I need to tell you three numbers before I tell you anything else about this car. $28 million, 3 and 4 years. $28 million is what each one costs. 3 is how many exist on Earth. 4 years is how long Rolls Royce spent building each one. And those three numbers together create a context for everything you are about to see that no other vehicle in automotive history can claim. Welcome back to UC Car Review. Today we are covering something that sits outside the normal boundaries of car reviewing, because the Rolls Royce boat tail is not a car in the conventional sense. It is not a vehicle that was designed, tested, and produced for a market. It is a personal commission, the most expensive, most bespoke, most individually specific personal commission in the history of automobile manufacturing. 3 people approached Rolls Royce's coach build division. 3 people described their vision. 3 people waited 4 years. And 3 people received something that no amount of money, beyond $28 million, can now replicate, because each one was designed specifically for its owner and cannot exist correctly for anyone else. I am going to take you through every detail of the boat tail that Rolls-Royce has permitted to be documented. The champagne system, the Parasol, the rear picnic setup, the owners, the philosophy. And I am going to answer the question that I know is already in your mind. Is a $28 million car worth $28 million? The answer is more complicated and more interesting than yes or no. Let's find out together. The Rolls-Royce Coach Build Division, the department responsible for creating the boat tail, is not a design studio in the conventional sense. It does not generate ideas and present them to potential buyers. It does the opposite. It listens to 3 specific people describe their vision of the most personal luxury object they have ever imagined, and then it builds that vision. The distinction is fundamental. The process for each boat tail began with what Rolls-Royce calls the client liaison, a series of private conversations between the owner and Rolls-Royce's design and engineering leadership in which no request was considered unreasonable, and no idea was dismissed before being fully explored. These conversations lasted, in some cases, over a year. They covered not just what the owner wanted in the car, but how they lived, where they traveled, what mattered to them aesthetically, who they were. One boat tail owner is a collector of watches and timepieces, an interest that directly informed the mechanical clock mechanism in the dashboard and the watch quality finishing of every interior component. One owner's family connection to sailing history influenced the nautical design language that runs throughout the car's exterior and interior. One owner specified elements drawn from their family's specific heritage that I am not permitted to describe in detail, because Rolls-Royce protects the privacy of boat tail owners with the same seriousness that they apply to the craftsmanship of the car itself. 4 years from first conversation to delivery. In those 4 years, Rolls-Royce's coach build team produced over 16 design sketches, built 17 full-scale physical models in different materials and finishes, and manufactured every major component to specifications that had never previously existed. The boat tail shares almost nothing with any other Rolls-Royce. Not the body panels, not the interior architecture, not the door mechanisms, not the rear deck system. It is built on the Rolls-Royce platform, but above that platform, it is entirely new. The champagne cooler built into the rear deck of the boat tail is the component that most people focus on when they first see this car, and understandably so, because it is simultaneously the most theatrical and the most technically demanding feature of the entire commission. But it is important to understand what this system actually is before discussing what it represents. The owner who specified the champagne system is a lifelong Moët and Chandon collector, a person whose relationship with a specific producer of champagne spans decades, and whose appreciation for the product extends to the precise temperature at which it should be served. 8 degrees Celsius, 46.4 degrees Fahrenheit, is the temperature at which this specific champagne expresses its characteristics most completely. The owner knew this. They communicated it to Rolls-Royce. And Rolls-Royce built a refrigerated compartment that maintains exactly 8 degrees Celsius regardless of the ambient temperature outside. Whether the car is parked in August in Miami or January in Aspen, the compartment holds 2 bottles simultaneously. The crystal glasses in their dedicated holders are a matched set produced by the same crystal manufacturer that produces glassware for Michelin 3-star restaurants in Paris. The Rolls-Royce crest is etched into each glass, not printed, not applied, but cut into the crystal by a craftsperson using a technique that originated in Bohemian glassmaking in the 17th century. The entire champagne system took Rolls Royce's engineering team 18 months to develop, not because the technology is unavailable, but because integrating it into the boat tail's rear deck mechanism while maintaining the structural integrity of the clamshell and the waterproofing required when the car is used outdoors required 18 months of testing. The Parasol. Of every element in the boat tail, the Parasol is the one that most completely defines what this car is and what Rolls-Royce's coach-build division is capable of. Not because it is the most technically complex. The champagne system is more technically demanding. Not because it is the most valuable. The interior leather and the clock mechanism represent greater financial investment. The Parasol defines the boat tail because it answers a question that no car manufacturer has ever previously been asked by a customer, and that most car manufacturers would have declined to attempt. The owner of this specific boat tail has a companion who finds direct sunlight uncomfortable during extended outdoor time. They spend significant periods on yachts and at outdoor events where shade is required but not always architecturally provided. They described this to Rolls-Royce, not as a specification requirement, but as a fact about their life. And Rolls-Royce's coach-build team, without being asked explicitly, developed a Parasol system that deploys from the rear deck of the car. The Parasol deploys automatically at the touch of a button. It rises from a housing integrated into the rear deck structure, a housing designed around the Parasol from the beginning of the car's development, not added afterward. The Parasol fabric is hand-woven silk, sourced from the same French silk manufacturer that supplies fabric to the haute couture houses on Paris's Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré. The navy color with gold border trim was specified by the owner to coordinate with their yacht's interior. When fully deployed, the Parasol covers a shaded area approximately 7 feet in diameter above the rear deck. It collapses and stores in 8 seconds when the button is pressed again. This feature adds no performance. It adds no resale value. It adds no status signal that anyone without knowledge of the boat tail would recognize. It exists because one person needed shade and Rolls-Royce cared about that person's comfort enough to spend 2 years engineering the solution. Rolls-Royce does not publish the names of boat tail owners. They never have, and they will not. The privacy protection Rolls-Royce extends to coach-build clients is absolute, not because the owners request anonymity, but because Rolls-Royce considers the relationship between their coach-build team and their clients to be as confidential as the relationship between a private banker and their client. The car exists. The owners exist. Their identity is Rolls-Royce's to protect. What is known through automotive journalism, through Rolls-Royce's controlled communications, and through the details of the cars themselves, tells a story about who commissions something like this without revealing who they are. The watch collector whose interest in mechanical timekeeping influenced the clock mechanism is someone for whom the relationship between human skill and mechanical precision is a lifelong passion. The detail in the boat tail's dashboard clock reflects a depth of knowledge about watchmaking that comes from decades of collecting at the highest level. The owner whose family's sailing history influenced the nautical design language, the boat tail shape of the rear, the teak-inspired deck material, the nautical hardware details throughout, comes from a family whose relationship with the sea spans multiple generations. The design choices are not decorative references to a lifestyle they admire. They are personal connections to a history they carry. What all 3 owners share, beyond the obvious financial capacity, is something more specific. They are people for whom the most meaningful objects in their lives are the ones that were made specifically for them, that carry their personal history in their design decisions, and that cannot belong to anyone else without losing something essential. The boat tail is not valuable because it costs $28 million. It costs $28 million because it is the only car in history that is completely, irreversibly, permanently theirs. To understand what the boat tail is, it helps to understand what it is not. It is not a Rolls-Royce Ghost with extra features. It is not a Phantom with a unique paint color and custom interior. It shares Rolls-Royce's platform and its powertrain philosophy, the twin-turbocharged V12, the air suspension system, the acoustic insulation approach. But above and beyond those shared foundations, the boat tail is an entirely different project from anything else that carries the Rolls-Royce badge. The Ghost, Rolls-Royce's entry-level model, at $398,500, is itself one of the most accomplished luxury vehicles on Earth. We covered it in a dedicated review on this channel. The Ghost's handcraft, its acoustic refinement, its magic carpet ride, all are genuinely extraordinary. The Ghost represents Rolls Royce's standard of excellence for a vehicle they produce in meaningful numbers for clients across the world. The boat tail represents something categorically different, not a higher level of the same thing, but a different thing entirely. The Ghost is the best that Rolls Royce can do for any client at $398,500. The boat tail is the best that Rolls Royce can do for one specific person with no budget constraint and 4 years of dedicated attention. The difference between those two briefs is not a matter of money. It is a matter of what becomes possible when the question is not, what can we build for this price, but what does this specific person need, and how do we build it for them regardless of what that requires? The complete rear picnic experience of the boat tail, all elements deployed simultaneously, is the moment where $28 million makes complete visual sense for the first time. Not financial sense, visual sense. The clamshell rear deck open, the parasol deployed above casting perfect shade, the champagne at 8 degrees in the cooler, the crystal glasses beside the bottle, the folding furniture, handcrafted by a Swiss furniture maker, stored in dedicated compartments within the rear structure, deployed beside the car. The entire setup is available in less than 3 minutes. The folding furniture deserves specific attention because it is perhaps the least discussed but most considered element of the entire commission. The owner specified that, when they use the boat tail's picnic setup, they should not be sitting in folding chairs from a camping supply store beside a $28 million car. Rolls-Royce agreed that this would be incongruous. The furniture, 2 chairs and a small table, was designed by a Swiss studio that produces contract furniture for 5-star hotels and private yachts. The design references the nautical hardware language throughout the boat tail's exterior. The materials are teak and polished marine-grade stainless steel. They fold and store in custom-fitted compartments within the rear deck structure. They weigh exactly as much as their storage compartments are designed to carry, no more. I have been asked by several colleagues whether the picnic setup is actually used or whether it is purely a demonstration feature. The owner has confirmed, through Rolls-Royce's communications team, that they use the rear deck system regularly. They are people who take their car to places where a picnic in the car's shade, with champagne from the car's cooler, is a natural extension of how they experience the world. The boat tail was not built around a feature. It was built around a life. $28 million. I want to answer the question directly and honestly, because this car deserves a direct and honest answer rather than the qualified enthusiasm that luxury automotive journalism typically offers at this level. The boat tail is worth $28 million to exactly 3 people on Earth. Those 3 people know who they are. They spent 4 years working with Rolls-Royce to make it worth that number to them specifically. The champagne system, the parasol, the furniture, the clock, the leather, the paint. None of these elements have a universal value that adds to $28 million. They have a specific value to specific owners that exceeds $28 million. The price exists because Rolls-Royce needed to cover 4 years of dedicated engineering and craftsmanship from their most experienced team, while maintaining the margins that allow the coach build division to operate. The value exists because 3 people understood that the most meaningful object in their life was worth more than any price Rolls-Royce could charge. Is it a car? Yes, it uses roads, it has an engine, it carries people from one place to another. Is it art? Yes, it expresses its creator's vision and its owner's identity in a way that transcends utility. Is it an investment? History suggests yes, based on what previous Rolls-Royce coach-built one-offs have done in value since their creation. Is it the most expensive new car ever sold? Yes, officially, by a significant margin over previous record holders. But none of those answers tell you what the boat tail actually is. What it actually is, and I believe this after spending time with the car and its documentation, is the most complete expression of what happens when a manufacturer genuinely commits to making something for a person rather than for a market. No compromise, no production constraint, no brief except the truth of who the owner is and what they need. The result is something that has never existed before and by design will never be replicated. 3 times for 3 people. For all of human history. You see Car Review, the Rolls-Royce boat tail, beyond scoring, beyond comparison, the most personal automobile ever built. Subscribe because next week we return to cars that mere millionaires can afford.